process of inflammation, whatever uh, uh, mishap or the destruction of surrounding tissue which was taking place during inflammatory process, now we wanted to clear all those things, right? So this is a repair process, and usually this is a clear suture, clear-cut surgical incision, which usually surgeons start with, and then you close that incision by putting some sutures, and this is we will be discussing in our next lecture, because there are two lectures and they are interrelated. So this will be we'll be discussing next time. So you all know that we start with acute inflammation. Some of the acute inflammation they resolve itself within 48 hours, 72 hours, or 4 days, and then this acute inflammation will then convert into chronic inflammation, and after chronic inflammation, we have a healing process. And as we were discussing the definition of chronic inflammation, we have to add three things. What are those? Number one, injury. Number one. Number two, inflammation. And number three, repair. So all the three processes will go together, and we'll call it chronic inflammation. In acute inflammation, what will happen? That this process of inflammation goes first, which takes 2 to 3 days, 4 days, and then as the acute inflammation is finished, then the process of repair starts. And the best cells of this repair process is macrophages, because there are a lot of, whenever neutrophils they burst, there are many reactive oxygen species and proteases which secretes there and causes local destruction of the tissue, right? Now they have to clear it. So macrophages, they come there, they'll try to take all the things together and goes out from that area, right? They are also called scavenger cells, right? They are there to sweep around everything. And if suppose there is some process of damage which is extensive, as somebody says, some fibroblastic proliferation also starts going on, and the things are repaired. Okay, so we have a healing and process start, which consists of two important things. One is regeneration and the other one is repair. Can anybody tell me what is the difference between these two, looking like alike, same, right? Is there any difference? The regeneration and repair?
Maybe regeneration is making new cells,
Uh-huh.
fixing the damaged cells.
Yes, good. So if you have a damaged tissue surrounded by a specialized cell, which can regenerate itself, it's regeneration. And if regeneration process starts, the whole thing become as normal as it was before. No abnormality will be seen. And if the regenerative cells are not available, then that process is repaired by a repair process, in which fibroblasts secrete some of the collagens and many other extracellular matrix which goes there to repair that process, and we will end up with the scar. This is the most important thing between these. So regeneration and repair is a problem here, huh? Can you please test tissue paper there, please? Yes. So we have regeneration and repair. Regeneration, no scar, because everything is being repaired very perfectly. And in regeneration, in repair process, definitely because of the fibrous tissue proliferation, you will be having scar. Okay. So in regeneration, there is a proliferation of specialized cells. For example, epithelium, if it is there, it is proliferating and regeneration process is going on. But in the other side, when the specialized cells are not there, where regeneration cannot take place, the best example is heart, myocardium. When there is myocardial infarction, the tissue damage surrounding one. And as you know, cardiac muscle cannot regenerate. So this area is been repaired by fibrosis. So scar tissue will be seen in that area. Okay. So restoration of tissue architecture function after injury is a repair process. It has two ways, as we have discussed. One is regeneration of the injured tissue, and the other one is replacement by connective tissue, which is scarring. Usually, both of them take place simultaneously, right? For example, if there is acute inflammation, which is little bit delayed, instead of 48 hours, it takes 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. So this longer time has caused larger amount of tissue injury, which will be replaced by some fibrosis, right? So these two things usually go together, and if the damaged tissue is minimal, then majority of the regenerative process take over everything, and the thing will be absolutely normal. But if there is more damage, then you have what you have? Repair and scar tissue. Okay. So involve cell proliferation, number one. Number two, and interaction between the extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix is very important in a repair process. It acts as a cement. For example, if you are building a wall, so you have bricks, and if you put bricks, you had to put some cement thing to join those two bricks together. So this extracellular matrix, it acts as a cement, right? So if you have good proportion of cement and bricks, then the wall become very strong. It is the same as you see there. Now in this picture, you can see that on the left side, it's a regeneration process, and on the right side, it's a healing by fibrosis scar tissue. Why? Because on the left side, it's regeneration. The extreme left is a renewing of the cells, which is labile cells, and you all know, and we will be discussing later on, what are labile cells? It is the epidermis, the GI epithelium, our hemopoietic system. So whatever cells which are labile one, they are proliferating more rapidly. So whatever things will take place, usually it ends up with regeneration. In the middle one, for example, these are the stable cells. They are not continuously dividing cells. The labile cells are continuously dividing cells. Stable cells, they are not continuously divided. They are mostly liver, kidney, right? So what happens to these if you take some portion of the liver out? For example, in this example, if you have taken this whole portion of the liver out, the rest of the liver, which is remaining there, will proliferate and attain almost the same size, plus minus, right? It tried to attain almost the same one. What not proliferate on this side, because there is no cell left behind. For regeneration process, it is very important that the remaining viable cells be there. For example, here you have cut all this thing from this side. Sorry. So what happens? There is no remaining cell on this side. So only this portion will go start regenerating. So the whole area become almost trying to attain the same size, trying to attain the same function which was there, right? Now here in the third one is a permanent cells. Permanent cells are heart muscle, skeletal muscle, neurons. So these are the permanent cells. So if there is, for example, here, there is any wound in the heart, myocardial infarction, many fibers are being damaged or infarcted. So it will be replaced by fibrous tissue because you don't have a new heart muscles, right? So it will be repaired by a repair process as scarring. Remember, if somebody had heart attack, it will be repaired and the person will become okay. He will roam around like anything. But whenever you do ECG of that person, the ECG will show the previous injury and scar tissue there. No matter it is 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, even after 10 years, if you do the ECG, will show that this person had myocardial infarction and though that portion is scarred. So scar will, no problem. The scar tissue slowly and gradually it shrinks. It try to modulate itself. We'll be discussing this thing in the next lecture, but the scar will be there. Okay. And the last one is chronic inflammation. If the chronic inflammation stays there for a longer time, in months to years, then there'll be a process of fibrosis there. This usually you see in rheumatoid arthritis. It's a long-standing autoimmune chronic inflammation in which chronic inflammation and repair process start going on together, and slowly and gradually patient's function deteriorates. Okay, now this is a very good example of a regeneration process and a repair process. On the left side of the slide, if you see on the top, it's a normal histology of the liver. And you can easily see lobule, right? And a portal triad. Now, in the left side, there is an injury to the liver tissue. And you can take an example of hepatitis A, in which the hepatocytes itself damage, but the architecture are reticulin fibers. The reticulin architecture does not change. Only the hepatocytes, they usually die. What happened when there is a regeneration process? Because the reticulin architecture is maintained, the liver become absolutely normal. Nothing will happen because the regenerative process of liver is very good. On the right side, what happened? Suppose you just take an example of hepatitis B and C, in which it's not only the damage to the hepatocyte, but also it is damaging the architecture, reticulin architecture. And you can easily see here, for example, here, there is a damage to the hepatocyte, but the reticulin architecture is well maintained, right? So when the cells start proliferation, they will form exactly the same architecture when it was before. But on the other side, if you see, the reticulin architecture is almost damaged. So there will be a proliferation of the cells, but that will be haphazardly placed. And there will be extensive fibrosis. And in liver, if you have extensive fibrosis with regenerative process, this thing is called cirrhosis. Very nice. So cirrhosis actually is a combination of regeneration and repair. Means fibrosis, because the reticulin architecture has been distorted, especially you must have seen your probably friends or your family members who ever had hepatitis A will recover 100%. But if they have suffered from hepatitis B or C, then there definitely will be having some damage in the liver. Okay, is it clear? So this thing clears the thing that how regeneration and repair process is going. Now in this lecture, we will be looking at cellular proliferation, growth factor, and extracellular matrix, because in each repair process, each cell development, you need growth factor. Without growth factor, the cell will never proliferate. Each cell divides, take one cell, and then stops until you have another growth factor. So each growth factor will proliferate one cell. One growth factor, one cell. So this will go on, and then this extracellular matrix will be a supporting thing of these cells to make it in a perfect shape. Now, the process of tissue repairs, as you know, it's just regeneration or fibrosis, which is scarring, and it will be seen in skin wound healing, and why the wound go good or bad, we'll see. But this will be done in the next lecture. Now, lot of things take part in cell proliferation during tissue repair. Number one is injured tissue remnant, number one. Number two, vascular endothelial cells and fibroblast. Wherever there is tissue injury, there will be newly formed blood vessels and fibroblastic proliferation goes on. What it is called, we will discuss later. Then you need to know few important things which we will be discussing now. Number one, stem cell. Each cell divide when you have stem cell there. If you don't have stem cell, the cell will never divide, right? Number one. Number two, proliferative capacity of the different tissues. For example, if it is labile cell, it will be continuously proliferating. So it will be easy that if the injury is taking place in the area where there is a lot of labile cells, what will happen? A regenerative process will be easily be done. But if it is a stable cell, yes, it will come up, but it will be little slower as compared to labile one. If it is permanent, there will be no proliferation of the cells. Cell cycle. Each cell, before it divides, had to go through this cell cycle. And how it does, we will let you know here. Growth factor, as I said, each cell will divide when one growth factor will come. One growth factor will come, attach to the receptor, this cell will proliferate, and then the other cell which will be remain there, again it needs another growth factor to divide, another growth factor to divide. Without growth factor, no proliferation. And finally, extracellular matrix. So these are the important points which we are going to discuss today, right? So this is how the cell proliferate. You have stem cell there, ample amount, it starts proliferating when it is needed, then proliferation goes on, and then it goes for the differentiation. For example, if it is skin, it will be aligned like in skin. If it is GI, it will be aligned like a GI mucosa, right? And suppose when the proliferation is more, what will happen? The cells which are needed will go in the differentiation one, and the rest of the cells will go in apoptosis. And you have the topic of apoptosis by Dr. Oban, right? And this is programmed cell death. And if the cells are not needed, for example, a stem cell has proliferative 100 cells, and you just need 80. What about 20 cells? That 20 cell will go automatically in the process of apoptosis. Clear? You can stop me anytime when you are not clear. I am also asking to you online people also. I don't know if they have authority to talk to me directly or not, I don't know.
I think they do.
They do. So whenever you have any question, just on your mic and ask me from there. Now, the body is divided into three main groups. Number one, labile cells, which is continuously dividing cells. These are skin, gut epithelium, bone marrow, and they are in a process of regeneration all the time. Your skin, it is always looking good and shiny. Why? Because nature has given in the basal layer of this epidermis these stem cells. And these stem cells are continuously making cells which is going up, 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 and up to the top. So the top layer, it shades off, and the new cells take its place. Top layer shades off, and the new cells take its place. And the cells which is shading off, remember, those cells will be having your whole DNA chart. That's why we always say, whenever you give your clothes to somebody, wash it first. Don't give your weird clothes to anybody, because in that clothes, hundreds and thousands of your cells are attached, which have your genetic whole computer, right? So anybody can use that thing against anybody. So if you want to give your clothes to anybody, if you want to throw it, wash it first to almost cancel all of your DNAs which are there, and then give that cloth to anybody or throw it. Usually this process is used in what you call yeah. So number two is stable cells, liver, pancreas, bone, and renal tubules. They are stable cells. They are not continuously dividing. They are in G0 phase. Labile cell, they never come into G0 phase. Stable cell, after the birth take place, they come in G0. I'll explain how it is there. And then if they are needed, they again come from G0 to G1. and they enter into the cycle until the proliferation is needed. Finally, we have permanent cells in which we have nerve, glomeruli, cardiac, and skeletal muscle. Glomeruli are the cells which are not formed. Although kidney is supposed to be a stable cell, right? If you cut the kidney, many of the tubules will be formed, but the glomeruli will never form. So one by one, continuously dividing cells. The cells are continuously proliferating throughout the life, can easily regenerate after injury because they are continuously in a cycle, contain a pool of stem cells, and where these stem cells are, I will show you. And the examples we all know. Stable cells, these are the cells can have limited ability to proliferate. So they are in a G0 phase. For coming into G1, you need a specific type of activation to those cells to take it from G0 to G1. Limited ability to regenerate except liver, because liver has a extensive proliferative capacity. Normally they are in G0 phase, but can proliferate if it is injured. So these cells from G0 will come into G1, and then from there they start in the cycle. These are liver, kidney, pancreas, and mesenchymal cells. Every mesenchymal cell, most of them. Then come the permanent cells. They cannot proliferate. They proliferate until the baby is not born. Intrauterine proliferation is going there. But once the baby is delivered, those permanent cells will go in G0 and it will never come into G1. That's why they are called permanent cells. They cannot regenerate, so injury always leads to scar, as we have discussed. Cardiac muscle, if there is infarction, there will be fibrosis. No new cardiac muscle will be found. Examples: neurons, cardiac muscle, and skeletal muscle. So they remain in G0. They are not able to come up in G1. Okay. This is a cell cycle. This is very important. You have to understand what this chart actually shows. Now, these are actually the cells. Labile cells will remain in the cycle. It depends demand and supply. If you need more proliferation, this cell will start moving fast and make more and more cells. If it is normal life, so it will go slow, right? But it will remain in the cycle. It will not go out. These are, you all know, epidermal cell, GI tract cells, or other epithelial cells, lining epithelium. So labile cells. The other cell is stable cells. They proliferate when they are in the uterus, intrauterine, and then when the baby is born, they usually come in G0 phase here. They are also called quiescent cells. Now, when the proliferation is required, you had to give a special instruction to these cells. It will again come back to G1, enter into the cycle, and they start proliferating until they need how much cell they want. And after the need is completed, the cell will go again to G0. These are stable cells. And the last one is permanent cells. Once the baby is born, they come into G0 phase and they can never enter back into the G1. Now, in this cycle, it's really important. There are two checkpoints. For example, if the cell is going towards from G1, which is pre-synthetic one, into the S phase, which is synthetic one, the cycle closely look at that cell, whether its DNA is in a normal position or not. Is there any damage to any of the DNA, any gene? So we have this one area in which you can repair that DNA. And suppose if the DNA is repaired and the cell become perfectly all right, then they allow the cell to enter into the S phase, which is synthetic phase. Now, the cells is entered into the synthetic phase and the process is started going on. Now, before dividing the cell, again there is another checkpoint here, G2M. This is pre-mitotic and this is mitotic. Pre-mitotic here, before dividing the cell, again there is a checkpoint in which the policeman is standing there looking at the cell, that whatever division has taken place, the DNA is absolutely all right now, because now the cell is going to divide. So the DNA is not injured, not harmed. Clear? So as they give a signal, the cell comes down and make a new cell here. And the other cell remain in the cycle. And then we need another growth factor to attach to the receptor. Again, this cell go here. Again, it will be checked. If green signal is given, we'll go into the pre-synthetic to synthetic one, and this things goes on again and again. Now, why these checkpoints are there? Suppose by mistake, if any of the cell crosses this limit, and even it crosses the other one, that abnormal cell will start dividing abnormally, and the process of neoplasia starts. The cancer starts from here. If this checkpoint is not 100% working perfectly, we are actually holding these cells. Now here, for example, in checkpoint 1 or in checkpoint 2, if the cells see something wrong, it will either repair it, and if it is irreparable, what will it do? It will throw the cell out and it will go in apoptosis. It will kill itself. It will not allow the cell to enter into the cycle and divide itself. Clear? Any question? Should we move now? Is this thing clear now? Good. Now, stem cells. The stem cells are characterized by their self-renewal. So we have to have stem cells always present on those cells which are going to proliferate. If you don't have stem cell, then the cells will never proliferate. Remember one thing. So they have a self-renewing properties, and by their capacity to regenerate and differentiate cell lineage. For example, if it is endoderm, it will form endodermal cells. If it is mesoderm, it will form mesodermal cells. If it is ectoderm, it will form ectodermal cells. You know about the lineages, right? There are two types of stem cell. One is embryonic stem cells and the other one is adult or somatic stem cells. Clear? Embryonic and adult. Now the embryonic stem cell, they have a larger capacity. These cells can form any of the cells, embryonic cells. These embryonic cells can form brain, neurons, they can form skeletal muscle, they can form cardiac muscle, they can form even endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Whatever cell you need, they will form because they are embryonic. They have a capability of forming each and every type of cell. They are developed from the inner cell mass of the blastocyst in the early embryonic development. I will show you where is the blastocyst and where it comes from. And then it can generate all tissue as we have discussed. They are also called pluripotent cell, give rise to multipotent cell. Yes, now it is further divided, which have more restricted development. The pluripotent cell has an ability to form any of the cell, but as it jumps from pluripotent to multipotent, then they are restricted. Now the other cell is adult one, which is somatic cell, which is a somatic cell because this multipotent cell will go into the somatic cell. They have a restricted property with a more restricted capacity to regenerate, and they have been studied in detail in a skin lining of the GI, cornea, and hematopoietic cells. So because these cells are continuously been dividing, but these cells are generating the specific cell. If it is skin, only skin cell will be produced. If it is GI, only GI mucosa will be produced, right? So only that specific area will be produced. It will not form, skin cell will form liver cell. No, it's not possible. Liver will form its liver cells only. So this diagram will show you each and everything. For example, this is blastocyst, and this is the inner core of the blastocyst, and these are the pluripotent stem cell. And they, in the embryonic life, this pluripotent cell can generate each and every cell in the body, whether it's neuron, cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle, hepatocyte, hemopoietic cell, pancreas, whatever you say, they have potential to form everything. But as the baby is born, what will happen? This pluripotent cell will go into the multipotent one, which is a restricted cell division, and then go further up and then go into the differentiated one. Either it will go into endoderm, ectoderm, or mesoderm. Clear? Okay. Now, in skin, there are three areas where these stem cells are being seen. One, in the bulge of this hair. That's why our hair are being continuously being produced. But in the sebaceous gland and in the lining of this epidermis here. And this lining, as I said, continuously pushing up, making new cells. And the older cells are shed off. In GI, they are present below the endocrine, enteroendocrine cells in this crypt and above the Paneth cells. Again, these cells, they are continuously being dividing, moving up and replacing the GI mucosa. That's why, alhamdulillah, you don't need anything. Suppose if something goes wrong, a new cell be replaced by the old one. Yes? In the GI, in GI, these blue cells are actually the stem cells. They are present beneath the enteroendocrine cells and above the Paneth cells. So this is the location of the stem cells. And when they proliferate, it pushes the cell up and up and up, goes up, and they line the whole GI tract. So throughout our life, these cells are continuously been proliferating and the cells are being changed. For example, somebody had peptic ulcer. I told you what's ulcer. It's a discontinuation of the epithelium. And once the epithelium is discontinued, it can be renewed back. The same epithelium will come up and then it try to proliferate and cover the whole ulcer area. And a time will come, there will be no ulcer, right? Regenerative capacity is very good. Now coming to the liver, the left one, this is liver. And these cells are present in the canal of Hering, and they are good in number. That's the reason why liver is being proliferated so quickly. Within weeks, the liver will be attained a good number of cells. If you cut the liver half, the other portion will be developed urgently. And the last one is the cornea and the eye. This end of the cornea, here it's a limbus, and these stem cells are present in the limbus. And thanks God, alhamdulillah, you all know that cornea does not have any blood supply. It gets its nourishment from the tears and from the vitreous which you have inside. And continuously throughout the life, these stem cells proliferate and they change the corneal cell all the time. And that's the reason why it is purely best transparent structure the Almighty God has given to us without any problem, right? So these are these stem cells which are going proliferating all the time. Now, growth factor, as I said, every proliferation needs to have a signal from growth factor. If growth factor is not there, there will be no proliferation. So one proliferation, one growth factor. Two proliferation, two growth factor, right? So action is to stimulate cell division and proliferation, and it promotes cell survival. And there is huge list, hundreds of growth factors. but we have to pick up some of it. And you just remember those who are really actively being used. You are not supposed to remember every growth factor, but the important one you should know, right? They have a suffix of GF. This is EGF, epidermal growth factor, EGF, transforming growth factor, PDGF, platelet-derived growth factor, so on. So these growth factors arise from different sources. So there are some. I have mentioned 8 here, these growth factor, and you should remember, it's not too much, I think. So you should remember, for example, epidermal growth factor, the source is active macrophages, salivary gland, keratinocyte, many other cells, and the function is mitogenic to keratinocyte, fibroblast, stimulation of the keratinocyte, migration, and stimulation formation of granulation tissue. The other one is transforming growth factor alpha. They are also they come from activated macrophages, keratinocyte, many other cells. They stimulate and proliferate hepatocyte, as the name says, not the other one. And there are many other epithelial cells. Then we have hepatocyte growth factor. As the name says, they proliferate mostly the hepatocyte, and they are present in fibroblasts, stromal cells, in the liver and endothelial cells. Then we have VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. They are mostly responsible for forming newly formed blood vessels and vascular permeability. They are present in mesenchymal cells. Then we have PDGF, platelet-derived growth factor, which is present in platelet, macrophages, endothelial cells, smooth muscles, and keratinocyte. The function, again, chemotaxis for neutrophils, fibroblasts, macrophages, smooth muscles. It activates and stimulates proliferation and proliferation of the fibroblast, endothelial cells, and proliferation of fibroblast, endothelial cell, and other cells stimulate extracellular protein synthesis. Then we have fibroblastic growth factor. There are hundreds of fibroblastic growth factor. Two are important. One is acidic and the other one is basic. The basic are mostly used for vascular proliferation. So we have angiogenesis process, which is done by basic fibroblastic or fibroblastic growth factor 2. They are present in macrophage, mast cells, endothelial cells. You don't have to remember all these things. I'm telling you, I will not going to ask this, but it's better that you should know some of it, that where it's coming from and where it is function is. Because probably when you will be preparing yourself for your board, the other exams, EC from G, whatever, board exams, so that will be important then. Transforming growth factor, beta, that was alpha, this is beta. So they are also from platelet, T cells, macrophages, endothelial cells, keratinocyte, smooth muscle cell, and fibroblasts. And again, the chemotaxis for leukocyte, fibroblasts stimulate extracellular matrix protein synthesis, and they are actually helpful for suppression of the inflammatory process. Suppression, transforming growth factor. Finally, keratinocyte growth factor, which is growth factor 7 also, coming from fibroblast, stimulate keratinocyte migration, proliferation, and differentiation. So there are 8 growth factors. Try to remember the name, right? And where its function is. Definitely, I will be asking if the important one, right? So you should know. For example, which of the growth factors causes termination of the inflammation? TGF beta, right? So by this important thing, huh? Or which of the growth factor is needed for angiogenesis? Fibroblastic growth factor B2, which is basic one, and VEGF, right? So like this. Okay. Now there are some signals by which this growth factor acts. Either it is autocrine, means whatever growth factors come out, it attaches on its own and it starts proliferating its own cell. Like we have seen, macrophage, they stimulate lymphocyte. Lymphocyte secretes interleukin, which stimulate itself to make more and more lymphocyte. This is autocrine. Then the same lymphocyte secrete TNF, tumor necrosis factor, which activates, produce more and more macrophage. And it also secrete interferon gamma. And this tumor interferon gamma is activating that macrophage which is coming out, right? So these are paracrine. So this cell, one cell is stimulating the other cell, right? And the third is endocrine. Your thyroid gland is here, but it is functioning the other organ. So what happened? The hormone goes out from this thyroid or a pituitary. Have you seen pituitary gland? This much. And this much of a gland is actually controlling your whole body. By which? By endocrine pathway. Secreting hormone, and it is almost looking after your whole body. Clear? So there are three processes: autocrine, paracrine, endocrine. Okay. Then we have different receptors. As I said, these, if you go back, all of them, they have particular receptor on the top. Here. So we have receptors. And how this receptor act, we are going to discuss here. There are three important ways the receptor are applied. Number one, either it is tyrosine, intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity, this receptor, which have this intrinsic tyrosine kinase, or this one, which is without intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity, or we have 7-trans G protein. So these all growth factors, interleukins, hormones, they are actually being transmitted through these receptors. Now let's go back. So receptors with intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity, so these receptors actually been utilized by EGF, VEGF, FGF. So all the growth factors usually take this pathway. So growth factor, they attach here, and as it attach here, it stimulates either PCL gamma or PI3 kinase, right? So any of them, for example, it is PI3 kinase, it will stimulate PI3 kinase pathway, PKB, AKT, and then whatever action they want to stimulate the nucleus. This growth factor can stimulate this MAP kinase pathway, RAS-RAF1, and finally it goes down and it's do the transcription of the nucleus and make the proliferation of the cells. Or finally, if it activates this PCL gamma, it will stimulate this IP3 pathway. IP3 will stimulate this calcium formation, and then again it goes activate the nucleus to do its function. This is one. This is what it is written here. The other one is G protein coupled one. So we have multiple inflammatory mediators, hormone and chemokines, which usually take this G protein. They goes there, attach, and then they stimulate this G protein, which finally activate the cyclic AMP pathway. And this cyclic AMP will go and activate the nucleus for the cell proliferation. And finally, we have a receptor without intrinsic enzymatic activity. These are the growth the factors like cytokines, interferon, growth hormone. They usually take this pathway, cytokine and this one, and they stimulate this JAK-STAT pathway. This JAK-STAT pathway, again, finally they activate the nucleus. So there are three. You should remember that there are three receptors. So you should also remember which factors are being used, which of the pathway. You don't have to go in detail, but you should know that the receptors on the top of the cell does not go directly down to the nucleus. There is a pathway, right? So that you have to activate that pathway and it will stimulate the nucleus to do the function. Clear? Okay. Now, this is the same growth factor one, this one, right? And it has stimulated PCL, stimulated this G1, this one, GRB2, right? This, and then it stimulates this RAS which is GDP, will convert into GTP, and by doing so, they stimulate this RAF, MAC, ERK pathway, which is called MAP kinase cascade. And finally, it actually stimulates the nucleus to do it. Now, why I'm showing it here? Why? Because sometime what happens that each, as I said, each growth factor attaches to the receptor and then it stimulates the process. What happens if the growth factor is not there and the cell start proliferating itself? This is called neoplastic process. This is the same RAS gene, this one, which is one of the gene. Sometime it become autonomous and it starts its own signaling and they start proliferating the cell. And this is actually a neoplastic process which goes on, and this neoplasia will be taught by Dr. Oban after your midterm exam. Okay. Now coming to the extracellular matrix, which we should know, some of the extracellular matrix. There are two forms. Number one is interstitial one, and other one is a basement membrane. They have a lot of things to do. They sequester water and mineral, give cell a scaffold to adhere to. So most of the growth factor, they usually stick to this extracellular matrix, and when they are needed, they are being supplied directly, and they store the growth factor there. Now, interstitial matrix, this form of extracellular matrix is present in a space between the cells of the connective tissue and between the epithelium and supporting one. As I said, it is in between the bricks. So it is a cementing material which holds these things together. If you don't have extracellular matrix, you will not be standing like this. This whole structure is basically made by these extracellular matrices. So they synthesize by this fibroblast, mesenchymal cells. Its major constituent are fibrillary or non-fibrillar collagens as fibronectin, elastin, protoglycan, hyaluronate, and other element. The other one is basement membrane. They are specialized, highly organized around the epithelial cells, endothelial cell, and smooth muscles, forming a specialized basement membrane. It lies beneath the epithelial cells, as you know, or near the endothelial cells underlying mesenchymal cells. It tends to form a plate-like chicken wire matrix or meshwork, and its major constituents are non-fibrillary type 4 collagen and laminin. So you can see this one here. These one are the interstitial one, which is in between the epithelium and the blood vessel. So this meshwork here, they are set in such a way that they are holding the epithelial surface, plus they are also holding the blood vessel in between. So they are not allowing this blood vessel to move here and there. So they are actually holding this thing strictly in its own position, right? Now this is basement membrane. So this matrix or extracellular matrix are haphazardly placed. If you see it, they are not very much organized. They are form of fibrillary collagens, elastin, protoglycan, or hyaluron. The basement membrane, they are highly specialized. Mostly it is type 4 collagen laminin, but you can see the structure of this one and you can see the structure of this one. So basement membrane are highly specialized one. They form and they held the cell in their own position. Without having basement membrane, epithelial cell cannot stay on. So you need to have a basement membrane. And as we were doing our inflammatory process, you know that the blood vessels have their own basement membrane and they are so tightly adhere, and the neutrophil which has to cross the basement membrane, what does it do? It secretes some of the proteases, collagenase enzyme to break down that basement membrane. And that basement membrane, after breaking down, the neutrophil is easily can go out. So they are very tight junction, these basement membrane. Now, function of extracellular matrix, they serve an important functions, definitely. It provides mechanical support to the tissue like collagen and elastin. It acts as substrate for the cell growth and the formation of tissue microenvironment. Good. It regulates all proliferation and differentiation. And finally, it intact extracellular matrix is required for the tissue regeneration, and if extracellular is damaged, repair can be accomplished only by scar tissue. As I said, just remember my first slide, in which the liver reticulin meshwork was distorted in the other one. So in the hepatitis A1, in which the reticulin meshwork was totally there, nothing goes wrong. But if the reticulin meshwork was distorted, then it was repaired by regeneration and cirrhosis. Clear? So this was all about today's lecture. Any question you have in your mind? Any question? Is it clear now? So next time we will be starting with the repair of the skin, how it takes place, primary and secondary union, and good and bad factors, right? Thank you, Emma. Any question from the online one? Okay, thank you very much. So yes.
This